I'm currently looking for mystery footage from a couple of different parts of the vlog, which hopefully I find. So this vlog did not go, let's say, as I had originally planned. I blame this book for extending this vlog into the winter months from the summer months. Hi everyone, it's me, Jess, your friendly neighborhood booktuber. Yes, we are here to launch the second installment. Hello, Granola. Granola's here with me as well. And we're here to launch the second installment of the college reading vlog. Very happy to be here for this. Just to fill you in if you are new to the channel, I did a reading vlog last year around this time called the college reading vlog, where my daughter assigned me books that she herself was assigned in courses that she was taking for her literature profile when she was in college. And she's in a literature program now in the university, and she's gone ahead and assigned me another batch of books to read. And I'm going to continue doing this, I think, for a couple of years because it's good fun. It's really interesting to see what she's reading in her literature program. And then we can discuss the books after. She's always curious about what do I think. So that's really nice. So the one thing I would say about the reading vlog is that it's pretty spoilery in the sense that the books that I read, I discuss my reading of them through the vlog. So if you're the kind of person that you don't want to have any spoilers, maybe be forewarned and be careful. Look for the parts of the video where I'm talking about a specific book. I try not to give away the big events in the book, but if you want to go in completely blind, then the reading vlog might not be the format of video for you. The books that I'm reading, just by way of introduction, Housekeeping by Marilynne Robinson. This is the story of two girls, Ruth and Lucille, who are orphaned, and they go back to their grandparents' home, and initially they're cared for by their grandmother, but eventually they're cared for by their somewhat eccentric aunt, Sylvie. And it's sort of hard to say what the story is exactly about. I've started this book, so I'll give a bit of an update, but it does seem like it's about housekeeping in a certain sense, which I'll get into, but it's about this relationship that these two girls have with their eccentric aunt and their relationship to their family history and the mystery surrounding their mother and the mysteries surrounding also their grandfather and this place where they've come to live called Fingerbone, where their grandfather actually died. It's a house, and it's described as being nestled in this glacial lake, and the lake plays a really big part in the story. That's all I'll say for now. I've already gotten quite far into it, so I'll give an update shortly on this one. The next one is White Noise by DeLillo, which I've also just started. Ooh, I can tell that this is going to be a wild ride. I've only read one DeLillo, Underworld, and I'm not even sure that I finished it. I think I just started it. I don't know why I didn't finish it. It was quite a big book. But anyway, that's beside the point. This is about a man named Jack Gladney, who is the head of, actually he's created this whole curriculum at this university college around Hitler, and it's his Hitler studies program. I think that it's satirical. Like, it does seem to be quite satirical of academia, and it's very, so far just in the first chapter, very critical of American life and American consumerism. He'd written this in, I think, 1984 and 1985. He's married to this woman, Babette, and they have 4 kids, and it's about their life, his life, and also something kind of calamitous happens, a cloud of smoke. Like, I think it has a lot to do with environmental pollution and climate problems back from the 80s. You can tell from this part in the cover. So like this ominous black chemical smoke cloud arrives, and then I don't know what happens after that. So far it's a wild ride, and I'm only like 4 or 5 chapters in. The other two I haven't started yet. She also assigned me The Boarding School Girl by Nadezhda Khvoshchinskaya. Khvoshchinskaya. Hope I'm saying the name correctly. This is about a young girl who befriends an older man and reflects on her education. So she befriends this radical character named Veretitsin, and eventually I'm going to say it correctly because Eden will tell me how to say his name. And he influences her, and she begins to reject her schooling and her role, I think. So that's the gist of it. I haven't started it yet. And then the last one is Ceremony, which is about a soldier. It's a soldier's story. So our main character is Teo, who was he was a soldier in the war, and he's returned from his war experience, having been a prisoner of the Japanese, and he's reflecting on that experience. He's come back to this, what's described as an insular world on the Laguna Pueblo Reservation, and it's about how he finds his way through the trauma of that experience, or finds his way to peace. I think that's what it's about. So looking forward to this as well. So those are the 4 books that I'm going to be reading this week. And then in addition to reading, last time I filmed the college reading vlog, we went and visited my daughter's college. We went to McGill, to a couple of the different libraries. I took you to the Islamic library on the McGill campus, and I think I'm going to do something quite similar this time. I want to go to another library on the McGill campus that I missed last year, called the Burke's Library, which is supposed to be very beautiful. And then I was thinking about heading to the Fine Arts Museum, because there's just keeping it very in the realm of arts and literature. I thought we could go to the Montreal Fine Arts Museum because they are having an exhibition this summer called Saints, Sinners, Lovers, and Fools, 300 Years of Flemish Masterworks. So that sounded pretty interesting to me. I think those are the activities that I have planned while I read these 4 books. And thank you so much for being here and for coming along with me. Welcome to the vlog. I'm not sure what our first destination is going to be, but you're going to find out very shortly. Good morning. I don't even remember what my intro to the vlog was. I haven't gone back and looked at the footage, so I just charged the battery for my little vlogging camera. We're gonna clean her off. The entire time I was traipsing around London, my camera lens was so filthy, and I'm not gonna make that mistake this time. Oh my gosh, you guys, you can see how filthy and disgusting it actually is. Okay, let's clean her up. I got the spritz. I don't know, should I spritz? Nola, should I spritz the cloth or should I spritz the camera lens? What do you think? He's like, either way, I want the cloth. Okay, I'm gonna spritz the cloth. I will be updating you on my reading in just a moment. Please hold. I realized that I don't know if I've ever vlogged at the National Library here in Montreal. I think I've done a few stories on my Instagram, or maybe just one. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful library, and I realized it's quite close to where I live, and I realized that my card is expiring, or I got a notice by email that my card is expiring. So I'm going to go down there and renew my library card and maybe take a look and see. I can't really take anything out of the library right now because I am just reading too much at the moment. All good stuff. I'm reading for the BookTube prize. I'm reading for this reading vlog. I feel like I'm forever a little bit behind because of how ambitious I am. Okay, so now this looks to be quite clean. Okay, that's good. That's ready to go. What's happening with the reading? Okay, well, I must say that I know it's just the beginning of the vlog, but I do have 4 books to read, and I finished Housekeeping by Marilynne Robinson. It's a pretty short book, just 215 or so pages, and I really, really enjoyed this one, you guys. If you haven't read it, I would recommend it. It's quite literary, as people say, literary with a capital L. It is very like the language is quite, I wouldn't say complex, but there is definitely a lot of vocabulary used to provide descriptions. And, you know, you have to really kind of like that, I think, to be able to enjoy this book. And it's highly, highly conceptual. There is a story and there is a plot and there is a twist at the end, but it's quite a conceptual book. It's the story of, let me see, I just made an Instagram post about this. If you're not following me on Instagram, follow along. I do use it and post quite a bit. I didn't realize this was Marilynne Robinson's debut novel. It was published in 1980, and I think she won a bunch of awards for Gilead. Well, Gilead won the Pulitzer Prize, which I guess maybe I'll be reading sometime in my future. I've never read it. I haven't read anything else of hers, but she's been critically acclaimed for a number of her books, and this was her debut. It's a really haunting story. Literally a haunting story about two sisters, Ruth and Lucille, who are kind of abandoned in their life. So their mother actually commits suicide. Apparently she drowns herself in this lake. The story takes place in a fictional town called Fingerbone, and it appears that their mother has committed suicide by drowning herself in the town lake. This town lake is a really important part of the book. The lake is very mysterious and it adds a lot of mystery to the story. Their grandfather also died in the lake, apparently. There's a story about how a train that he was on plunged into the lake. And so we follow Ruth and Lucille, the two girls, and they really have different personalities. They're very different, and they have different experiences being raised by first their grandmother, who's pretty eccentric, and then their Aunt Sylvie, their mom's sister, who is extremely eccentric. Guys, I'm sorry for the outdoor noise. It's just part of life until I get my air conditioning. I am getting air conditioning installed because it's so dang hot in this apartment, but once the air conditioning gets installed, then you're going to end up with background noise of air conditioning. So Aunt Sylvie, who is really their main caregiver for the majority of the novel, is a really quirky, eccentric character. She's obviously experienced a lot of loss and a lot of grief in her life, and she's moved from her home to come and take care of the girls. But she really is a bit of a nomad, what you would call today a nomad, what is referred to in the book as a transient or a wanderer, someone who is more interested in being free. And she's really connected to being outside, being in nature, and doesn't want to conform to the confines of society and the way that really the book is a commentary on the way that we in society control our environment and try to control the chaos or the uncertainty of the natural world. And so we do that, and hence the name of the novel, we do that in part through housekeeping, through keeping our houses clean and everything organized and maintaining a high level of control over the day-to-day routine and the day-to-day experience. And that's something that Sylvie represents as a character, as a counter to, is a opposite to this. So she's really a nonconformist. She has this unconventional lifestyle. She sometimes wanders off into nature. She's can't be found. She's out on a boat in the lake, just hanging out. This whole idea of ordering your life and ordering memories and making order out of chaos is a major theme of the novel, or trying to impose some kind of structure on nature, on chaos. And ultimately, Ruth and Lucille take these opposing paths, Ruth more aligning herself with Sylvie, and Lucille really rejecting that and leaning in more to the notion of control and organization and rules and keeping things tidy. Essentially, it's kind of a funny, it's maybe a funny idea for a metaphor, but it works really well with this book. And I find that the writing in this book is just so beautiful. And I guess you have to be someone who likes literature, I think, to really appreciate this book. Like, if it's something that annoys you, you will probably be annoyed by it. Like, you might find it condescending or a little highbrow. But I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I think it's like really, it's sitting with me, and it's probably going to stay with me for a long time. At least the character of Sylvie really struck a chord with me, which is really interesting because I remember when I read Boulder, it just reminds me of the character Boulder a little bit. And Boulder is this, it's just another story with a similar type of character, but the character wasn't written in a way that appealed to me. So it's all very personal, whether you like characters or whether you like books or not, of course. Now let's see, what did I mark here? Oh, here's a bit of a contrast between Sylvie and Lucille, because as I said, they were very, very different. So Sylvie's room was just as my grandmother had left it. But so Sylvie moves into the grandmother's room in the house. But the house is the house that the grandparents had, that this grandfather who was in this train wreck lived in. Sylvie's room was just as my grandmother had left it, but the closet and the drawers were mostly empty, since Sylvie kept her clothes and even her hairbrush and toothbrush in a cardboard box under the bed. She slept on top of the covers, with a quilt over her, which during the daytime she pushed under the bed also. Such habits, she always slept clothed, at first with her shoes on, and then after a month or two with her shoes under her pillow, were clearly the habits of a transient. They offended Lucille's sense of propriety. She would imagine that some of the sleek and well-tended girls at school, whom she knew only by name and whom no possible combination of circumstances could make privy to such details of our lives, would think, if they saw our aunt's feet on the pillow, for she often slept head downward as a cure for insomnia. Yeah, so she was really embarrassed of Sylvie. Lucille was galled and wounded by her imagined disapprobation. Once, because it was warm, Sylvie took her quilt and her pillow outside to sleep on the lawn. Lucille's face flushed and her eyes brimmed. Well, this is just a little passage that explains just how odd Sylvie is and how hard it is for Lucille to have her aunt be so odd, and how ashamed she feels about it. And there's a description of what Sylvie's idea of housekeeping is. She said, she writes, who would think of dusting or sweeping the cobwebs down in a room used for the storage of cans and newspapers, things utterly without value? Sylvie only kept them, I think, because she considered accumulation to be the essence of housekeeping, and because she considered the hoarding of worthless things to be proof of a particularly scrupulous thrift. There's a lot more to think about in this novel, too. There's a lot of writing about nature and about the lake and about what is to Sylvie and maybe even to Ruth. And sometimes it was a little bit confusing in the reading. It seems like a blurring of the line between what makes us human and what makes us natural, part of the natural world. And that happens a lot in the novel as well. So I think Robinson is also trying to explore that idea of how we have separated ourselves from the natural world. And what does that mean to us in terms of, I think in this case, because there's a lot of grief and loss and abandonment explored, because the girls, and especially it's told from Ruth's perspective, have been abandoned by their mother and they've lost their mother, and their grandmother dies as well. So that whole idea of a beginning and an ending of life, and that possibly that's not necessarily so in the natural world. There's a lot in the book as well. I'd like to read it more closely at some point about memory, and there's a lot of different ideas about memory that Robinson writes about. Like she writes, memory is the sense of loss, and loss pulls us after it. But every memory is turned over and over again, every word, however chance, written in the heart, in the hope that memory will fulfill itself and become flesh, and that the wanderers will find a way home. So there's a lot of really interesting writing about memory and loss in the novel as well, which I really appreciated. There are lots of different markings in this book. There's also lots of little funny bits. There's a couple of different, more than a few passages where my daughter wrote in her little LOLs, especially about Ruth's experience about being forced to go to school and being forced to conform. I really enjoyed this. I'm really happy I read it. It's one of the reasons I really like doing this college reading vlog, is because a lot of times the books that are recommended are books that are sometimes back titles. They're not necessarily classics, and they're not necessarily, like, this was written in the 1980s, so I'm not sure how I would have noticed it otherwise. I haven't seen many people talking about it, for example, on BookTube or on Bookstagram or in other places. So I really like this. I like doing this series. Next up, which is a bit more famous, this book is a little bit more famous. Maybe Housekeeping is famous and I just am in the dark about it, but White Noise is certainly famous because I've certainly heard of it. I've started it, guys. I'm about 100 pages in, no, 70 pages in. Whoa, it's so good, but also so strange. Like, this is definitely a book that's giving you a lot to chew on from the very beginning. It's a scathing commentary on modern life in America. There's so much that sort of reads quotables in the book, and there's one infamous, I think pretty infamous scene at the beginning of this book. There's a lot of commentary on technology. The book opens with students coming for the beginning of the semester at this college where Jack Gladney teaches his Hitler studies course. So there's a satire of academia. There's a small town setting, but it opens with all of these parents driving up in these station wagons, in a row, one after the other station wagon. Just there's one that's burgundy, there's one that's brown. They're all different colors, but they're exactly the same. And that there's really no individualism at all. It's all conformity, and it's all conformity based around consumption. That I think is pretty interesting. At one point he equates Elvis to Hitler. He's definitely talking about consumption, and he's writing about it in a bunch of different ways. He later on writes about it when it comes to the way people eat. He talks about the fever of eating in the society. He says, when times are bad, people feel compelled to overeat. Blacksmith is full of obese adults and children, baggy pants, short-legged, waddling. They struggle to emerge from compact cars. They don sweatsuits and run in families across the landscape. They walk down the street with food in their faces. They eat in stores, cars, parking lots, on bus lines, and movie lines under the stately trees. Only the elderly seem exempt from the fever of eating. So this whole idea of never being satisfied and constantly having to consume, the emptiness of it all. And there's a lot of criticism of technology and the unknown and just kind of blindly following, and this underlying fear of the fact that, I mean, I guess the title, White Noise, the idea that there's all this activity behind the scenes that we are unaware of, or that we are unconscious of in this modern society, so we can't possibly know what it's doing to us, that we don't have the knowledge, and we just have to accept that we don't have the knowledge. And part of the way that we accept that we don't have this knowledge is because we're consuming all the time. So it keeps us distracted. So already this kind of knowledge, this fear, this underlying anxiety is established in the book, because we have situations where people are taking medications, or I think it's his wife's mother, they're wondering if she's taken her medication or if she took the wrong medication, and they don't even know what the medication is. Yeah, and then also with technology, not knowing necessarily how technology works. There's a couple of different passages from that. Actually, there's one part that I just finished reading where they've had to evacuate the school and nobody knows why. There's some chemical that has leaked through and nobody knows if it's dangerous or not. It reads, they had to evacuate the grade school on Tuesday. Kids were getting headaches and eye irritations, tasting metal in their mouths. A teacher rolled on the floor and spoke foreign languages. No one knew what was wrong. Investigators said it could be the ventilating system, the paint or varnish, the foam insulation, the electrical insulation, the cafeteria food, the rays emitted by microcomputers, the asbestos fireproofing. Well, now we know what we know about asbestos. The adhesive on shipping containers, the fumes from the chlorinated pool, or perhaps something deeper, finer grained, more closely woven into the basic state of things. That is very scary. And this was written in 1984, I think. It's definitely psychologically disturbing. And then there's a famous scene in the beginning also having to do with technology and our own experience of our lives, where there's a barn in this small town and people have come. I can't remember why they come to see the barn, but they come to see this red barn because it's famous for some reason. Sorry, I don't have I've forgotten why the barn is famous. Yeah, I found it. Okay, it's very early in the book. It's like on page 12. So it says, several days later, Murray asked me about a tourist attraction known as the most photographed barn in America. I think this is famous for White Noise. We drove 22 miles into the country around Farmington. That's satire. There were meadows and apple orchards. White fences trailed through the rolling fields. Soon the signs started appearing, the most photographed barn in America. We counted 5 signs before we reached the site. Like, he exaggerates everything. We walked along a cowpath to the slightly elevated spot set aside for viewing and photographing. All the people had cameras. Some had tripods, telephoto lenses, filter kits. A man in a booth sold postcards and slides, pictures of the barn taken from the elevated spot. We stood near a grove of trees and watched the photographers. Murray maintained a prolonged silence, occasionally scrawling some notes in a little book. No one sees the barn, he said finally. A long silence followed. Once you've seen the signs about the barn, it becomes impossible to see the barn. We're not here to capture an image, we're here to maintain one. Every photograph reinforces the aura. Can you feel it, Jack? An accumulation of nameless energies. This is a commentary on the fabrication of our experience and that we'd rather consume a fabricated experience than an actual experience. And like, here I am filming a vlog about this book. You might want to read it. But anyway, it just, who knew, right, when he was writing this in 1984, that people would literally be continuing to do this. I mean, I think it's just so significant. It's really interesting. There's going to be obviously a lot to think about. I'm only 70 pages in. That is where I am with the reading. That's my reading update. We're going to go to the library today, and yeah, I'm going to take you along with me. My camera lens is now clean. So let's go. It's like truly a challenge to do this vlogging in public, but here we are. We're at the beautiful National Library of Quebec. I was able to get my card renewed, so I'm very happy about that. And I'm just gonna, because it's such a beautiful library, whew, it's warm outside. So yeah, I'm just gonna try to show you around without being too conspicuous, without filming too many people, because it is a very beautiful space.
Wish that I could just turn off
I actually found a spot on the uppermost floor where they actually have like soundproof rooms for people who are musicians who want to play music or record music. I'm pretty sure it's a pretty incredible space. It makes me think of my dad every time because this was my dad's favorite place to come and hang out. He would spend his retired days, many days here in the Bibliothèque Nationale because it's quite close to our home where he lived. So I'm at the top floor, and from this floor you can really see the whole scene all the way down. It's giving me a little bit of vertigo to look down, but I'm gonna just go down the stairs, and that way I can show you the whole beautiful library. Hello, it's me again. It's raining today. I'm downtown and it's a very, humid, I would say very humid day today, and it's raining, hence the umbrella. And so I thought it might be a good day to go to the museum. So I think I'm gonna head up to the museum. There's an exhibition of Flemish, painters. So I've started the Boarding School Girl, which is very exciting, but I didn't want to do a book update outside in the rain because my books would get wet that way. So I will do a book update later on when I get back home. But in the meantime, let's go see some art.
People in therapy are often there to deal with people in their lives who won't go to therapy. I have a job, it's actually quite fulfilling, though my hairline is thinning. I barely do anything else. I read self-help books, I do meditation, walks in the woods, a new destination. I sit with my feelings. Sometimes I'm even journaling. I got a full-time job, though no one pays me, and it's all thanks to you. Some days I wish I had a relationship status. Then I remember last time I ain't got time for that. I do meditation, walks in the woods, a new destination. I sit with, I got a full-time job, though no one pays me, and it's all thanks to you. My friend says I ain't stuck. I'm too self-aware, but how else will I get any luck if there are wounds left to wear? I read self-help books, I do meditation, walks in the woods, a new destination. I sit with my...
Hello. I'm home. Still kind of raining outside. It's a very funny rain. It's like a mist. Oh, excuse you. It's like a mist outside. So you have to use an umbrella. Anyway, it's very nice because we've had very hot weather, so it's very nice to have a rainy day. That was a really wonderful exhibit at the Montreal Fine Arts Museum, the Musée des Beaux-Arts, as we like to call it. That was a really interesting little exhibit. So I wanted to just update everyone, if I can, if Noah will let me, Wanted to update everyone on my reading. I have started The Boarding School Girl, and I'm quite enjoying this one. It's not very long. I'm a little less than halfway through it, 65 pages. So it's about a relationship between a young girl who's in school and an older man. The young girl's name is Lolenka. She's a great character. She is coming of age, and she's realizing that the rules that she has to abide by at school and at home are not really, they don't make sense. They're not really necessarily to her benefit. They're more designed to have her behave in a way that's acceptable to her parents and to society. And this man that she starts up this friendship with, this Vertitsin, is opening her eyes a little bit to this idea. So it's kind of an interesting story. I marked a little passage where Vertitsin is talking to Lolenka, and he's pointing out to her this idea, planting this idea, putting this idea into her head. It's all about kind of being, that education is presented as being about obedience and about how you present yourself. So this whole idea that like this child's existence is really for the pleasure of her parents, and the pride and the kind of showing off of her parents is a new idea to Lolenka. And then, like I said, it gets echoed a little later on. Some of the students are laughing and giggling together, and some of them are diligently studying. And at one point she gets into trouble with the monitor, and the monitor says, "Follow Mademoiselle Helene Gostoyeva's example, look how she behaves. Mademoiselle Helene really is always exemplary. Look how pomaded her hair is today. She excels in everything, absolutely." Like, so it's more about how the child looks than, and it is a little bit about her behavior, but it is about the way that the child is presenting themselves, the way that what they wear. Earlier in this chapter, she talks about ironing her school uniform and being especially careful to make sure that everything looks very prim and proper. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm just at the beginning of it, but it's already got some interesting ideas, and this relationship between Vertitsin and Lolenka seems to be very funny. The way he speaks so frankly to her and the way she's so curious about what he has to say is already very charming. And then in terms of white noise, I'm at the Toxic event in about the middle of the book. And yeah, it's really good. It's really interesting. I do feel like it's a little bit repetitive, or I don't know if it's disjointed or repetitive, but it's a little bit show-offy. In the sense that he is making points, and he's making these very valid points about consumption and capitalism and fear, this sort of anxiety that exists in a consumer society. He's doing that really, really well, but it's a little bit repetitive, and so it makes the reading experience, I mean, he's very good at what he does. So there are moments when you're reading and you are experiencing the anxiety, and there's moments where you're reading where it's just not particularly plot. There's not that much plot. It's a lot more about satire and a lot more about those observations about technology and about knowledge and about our experience being mediated. So it's very interesting. I think it's obviously a good book for the college reading vlog, because I think it's a good book to read for a class. But I'm having a little bit, I don't know, like it's fine. It's just I'm not in love with the book. Like, it's not grabbing at me and my emotions. It's if there's any emotion that white noise is grabbing at, it would be anxiety. There's one passage that was really, really good that I highlighted here, and it's interesting because I said I'm reading my daughter's copy, and she wrote at the top there, 10 out of 10 passage, and a lot of stars. But I think she's right. I think she's right. So I thought I would highlight it for you in the vlog. It's a passage about shopping. I shopped with reckless abandon. I shopped for immediate needs and distant contingencies. I shopped for its own sake, looking and touching, inspecting merchandise I had no intention of buying, then buying it. I sent clerks into their fabric books and pattern books to search for elusive designs. I began to grow in value and self-regard. I filled myself out, found new aspects of myself, located a person I'd forgotten existed. Brightness settled all around me. We crossed from furniture to menswear, walking through cosmetics. Our images appeared on mirrored columns in glassware and chrome, on TV monitors, in security rooms. I traded money for goods. The more money I spent, the less important it seemed. I was bigger than these sums. These sums poured off my skin like so much rain. These sums, in fact, came back to me in the form of existential credit. I felt expansive, inclined to be sweepingly generous, and told the kids to pick out their Christmas gifts here and now. I gestured in what I felt was an expansive manner. I could tell they were impressed. They fanned out across the area, each of them suddenly inclined to be private, shadowy, even secretive. Periodically, one of them would return to register the name of an item with Babette, careful not to let the others know what it was. I myself was not to be bothered with tedious details. I was the benefactor, the one who dispenses gifts, bonuses, bribes. The children knew it was the nature of such things that I could not be expected to engage in technical discussions about the gifts themselves. He goes on to say, after this experience of shopping, we drove home in silence. We went to our respective rooms, wishing to be alone. A little later, I watched Steffi in front of the TV set. She moved her lips, attempting to match the words as they were spoken. So that was a really good passage where you really get the sensation that the actual experience of shopping, this is written in '86, so the actual experience of being in the mall and shopping and what it did to distract you, A, from the worries of the world, and B, to make you feel powerful and good. It was really effective. It was really well written. So there are parts of this book that are really good. The satire is really good. Like I said before, there are sections of this book that are great, but it's just kind of a so there's that aspect to the reading experience, but in terms of a sense of the characters and a sense of the plot, the only thing is that there's this toxic event, and I'm in the middle of the section on the toxic event, and they've left home and they're trying to escape this toxic event. So it'll be interesting to see where he takes it. There was also another passage with where they were on an airplane, and there was like this fear that the plane was going to crash, which was also very stressful and very effective. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say I'm enjoying it, but it's very, very well written, and it's very interesting, and I think it was pretty far ahead of its time, or maybe just really a true reflection of that time. It's a little hard to remember. So I think I'm going to update you. Hopefully I'll finish White Noise, or I might finish The Boarding School Girl first, and then I'll update you. I'm getting air conditioning. Maybe by the time the vlog is over, I'll have air conditioning. I'm just babbling now. I'm going to say goodbye for now. I'm going to sign off for now, and I will check in with you soon. Bye for now. Hey everyone, it's late night editing Jess here, and I just wanted to update you. Spoiler, she got the air conditioning. Hello everyone, I am actually downtown on my way to an appointment, and here is the point in the vlog where I pick up from the summer to kind of present day, I guess. I started this vlog in, I think, June, so this is just strange. This has never happened to me before, but I really wanted to finish it because it means a lot to me. And I did finish White Noise, and I also finished The Boarding School Girl, and I'm going to give kind of a summary and update of my thoughts on those two books when I get home. I did just want to talk about the book Ceremony, because I did start this book a couple of weeks ago, and I have to say that it's very moving, this book. It's very well written, and I don't know if I would say I'm enjoying it because it's emotionally a little bit harrowing. It's about Teo, who has returned from the Vietnam War to the US, and like, I don't want to give anything in the story away, but he had a very significant loss while he was fighting in the war, and the story really deals with how he processes that loss. But at the same time, our main character, Teo, is not a full-blooded Indigenous man. He's half white and half Indian. So, or half white and half Indigenous. So he's really of mixed ancestry. So a lot of that identity is being explored in his story. So he doesn't completely fit in to either world. It's almost as if he has one foot in one world and one foot in another world. He wasn't raised by his mother. He was raised by his aunt. And so he really is an outcast in his own community. That's tough. So I'm about halfway through, and I'm not sure I'm going to finish this for this vlog because of my other plans for December, but I definitely want to finish it by the end of the year, and hopefully it'll be included in a wrap-up. So the other thing that I wanted to say is that I am downtown, and I did take you to the Musée des Beaux-Arts, the Fine Arts Museum in Montreal, in the first part of the vlog. That was back in the summer, and that exhibit is obviously not ongoing. There's another exhibit at the museum now. I don't even know what it is, but I thought maybe I would check and see, and I will leave the updated information about what's currently exhibiting at the Fine Arts Museum in the description box below, just in case anybody's curious. I don't think I have a lot of viewers in Montreal, but just in case there are. And yeah, this is just the way this vlog has gone. I have to say that I wanted to take you to the BAnQ library this time in this vlog, but I realized that we're in the last week of the semester for students, and so I really feel like it's quite a small, quite an intimate library, and I really feel as though I would be invading their sacred space at a sacred time. So I think I will leave the visit to the BAnQ library for one of the Vlogmas reading vlogs that I'm planning to do coming up in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. So yeah, I'll be back on to update you on my final thoughts for White Noise and for The Boarding School Girl, and then I'll probably sign off this vlog and start filming another vlog for December's series of Vlogmas / Reindeer Readathon / Bookmas vlogs. Thanks everyone for being patient. I don't think anyone was really waiting, like holding their breath for this reading vlog, but I'm just, I'm a completionist and I didn't want to abandon it. So thanks for bearing with me with this kind of very fragmented and out of sequence or extended reading experience. Hello, I'm home and I'm ready to finish off this vlog. So we have actually gone full circle. It's actually snowing. I don't know, I'll show you just this. I'll probably end this vlog with just a shot of the snow. So yes, I just wanted to speak briefly, because I know it's now quite a long video, but I wanted to just speak briefly about the two books that I finished in the vlog, The Boarding School Girl and White Noise. I'm going to start with The Boarding School Girl. I don't know how more people don't know about this book. It surprises me. I guess it doesn't surprise me because if you look at it in the historical context, it does make sense that a female author's works didn't come through that period. What an incredible little story. It's, as I mentioned, it tells the story of Lolenka and Verititsin, whose name I can now pronounce. This man who she starts a conversation with through the fence in the garden. And he is this disgruntled, failed, outcast poet. And he is very cynical, and he tells her that she should wake up and smell the coffee and understand what the world is doing in terms of her education and how it's a means of control. And this sparks in Lolenka a sense of rebellion, and she purposely starts to do poorly at school, and she also she falls in love with Verititsin, I think because of what he represents. But what's really cool about the story, and I don't want to give the complete ending away, is that now, since she's failed her exams, rather than portraying her as then only having the option to get married, which is addressed a little bit later in the book, what actually happens is that Lolenka takes her future into her own hands. She moves to the big city and she becomes an artist. She not only rebels against the system of education, but she also rebels against the notion that she should also marry, which is really radical, I feel. So this is a very feminist little book, and especially for its time. She ends up molding a life for herself and her own version of success. And a little later in the book, they do meet up, Vertitsin and Lelenka, in the big city 8 years later. And he kind of admonishes her for not being married, which is another commentary on these ideas. It's okay to rebel against the education, but you can't rebel against the idea of your role as a woman in society. So he only takes it so far, or she, the author, only takes it so far in terms of, I guess, the virtuousness, if there is any, of Vertitsin's influence on Lelenka. Although I wouldn't say that it's virtuous. It's really, he really does it carelessly. In fact, at the end of the book, he apologizes for influencing her so carelessly, and that he should have been more thoughtful about the way that he spoke to her. Of course, none of that matters to Lelenka because she's very happy in her life at the end of the book. It's very refreshing. She doesn't end up committing suicide or getting married or any of those things. So I thought this was just a real gem of a little book, and I know it's not easy to get your hands on it. It's a translated work, so definitely a worthwhile read. And the second book that I finished in the vlog that I wanted to wrap up, so to speak, is White Noise. This book had me stalled out. I blame this book for extending this vlog into the winter months from the summer months, because I read all the way up to the point of this calamity, which was this dark smoke cloud that created a sense of doom that was responded to by everyone as a crisis and a threat to their health and their security. Everybody gathers in this sheltering place. I think it was a gym, and there is some kind of toxic element in the smoke cloud that is dangerous. And Jack, our main character, is told that he is likely going to have an early death as a result of this. So he finds out that he's probably been affected by this noxious toxin in the air and that he's going to be facing an early death. From that point on in the book, this fear of death becomes the central focus of the book from there on. His wife, Babette, he discovers, is also afraid of death and has been getting this medication, this mysterious medication that is supposed to relieve her of the fear of death. So what would be like an anti-anxiety medication, but the perfect anti-anxiety medication that stops you from being afraid of dying, which, to be honest, sounds amazing. So he really goes from tapping into a general anxiety in the first part of the book to tapping into that very central reason for the anxiety of all anxieties, the reason for consumption, the reason for consumerism, the reason why we're distracted by our self-importance, and the ways that we try to overcome is through all of this eating, consuming. Really, the central issue is that we are very afraid of death. And both he and his wife talk extensively about their fear of death. Each wishes the other to die before them, or I think more so Jack wishes for Babette to die before him. And so I wasn't expecting that. And once I got past the middle part and I started reading the second section, it actually went fairly quickly. So yeah, at the end of the novel, what we're reminded is that we are immortal and that no matter how much television we watch, no matter how many things we buy, no matter how much we discuss in pop culture or politics of the time, we're still inevitably going to have to face that final reality. The book also really does quite well explore the absurdity of our existence in the face of death and the ways that we as human beings have devised to spend our lives in the context of this academic setting where Jack Gladney teaches. And just, I think he does capture that very well, that there's this repetition to our lives. A lot of the writing is in the form of lists. So there's list after list after list after list. Creating lists, checking things off your list, adding to your list. It's a little bit ironic, you know, because our lives are really run by these lists, that it really is very superficial and distracts us from any kind of deeper thinking or understanding or even creativity about our human experience. And it also keeps at bay thoughts about our own mortality. And also, I think, is used to serve the idea that he also incorporates of technology and information overload and not really understanding and seeking understanding. It's a way of making a pattern. I mean, this is just a book that you need to take a class for this book, I really feel. Not that you wouldn't benefit from reading from it outside of school, but I really feel like this is, you know, this is a book that I would like to have somebody explore for me and give me a class on or a course on. Maybe I need to self-teach myself and make a longer video about white noise. I'm really looking forward to finishing this in the coming weeks, so it'll definitely be included in a wrap-up. I may not include these in a wrap-up because I think I've already talked about Housekeeping and The Boarding School Girl in another wrap-up, and I will leave those linked in the description box below. So there you have it. Thanks everyone so much for watching. If you're new to my channel, this is quite unusual. Usually my vlogs are presented to you over the course of about a week, not 6 months. I have definitely a lot more. I think I probably have at least 10 books that I need to talk about in a wrap-up. So there's quite a bit coming on the channel in the next few weeks. Thanks everyone for watching. I appreciate you all so much. Say hi to me in the comments if you're a new subscriber, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now. I've started The Boarding School Girl. Guys, I started The Boarding School Girl. It's very exciting. The lighting is so bad. It's the best lighting. Follow Madame Helene Gostoyeva's example. Look how she behaves. Mademoiselle, did I say Madame or Mademoiselle? She's a bit of what's preferred. Oh my God, please stop talking. I'm trying to film. Can you stop your chitter chatter? Thank you. I'm not sure about this angle and this camera. Okay, scratch that. I'm not moving now. It's gonna be crooked. If it's gonna be a crooked angle, it's gonna be a crooked angle. Don't take that, hold on. Okay, so we're at the first floor. So we're gonna look at some English. See what's new in English. Comment anglais.